Hi guys, this is Ratan. Today we'll solve one of the most important interview coding question in JavaScript, in which the interviewer might give you an array like this and ask you to remove the repeated elements in an array. For example, if you get this array as an input, the output should be like this, in which no elements would repeat. All the elements would occur only once. Here, like 1, 2, 3 is over here, and when it comes to third index, it should not be printed, right? It should not be pushed into the array. So, and no matter how many ever times it's repeated, in the output it should occur only once. Okay, so basically I would have two approaches for this kind of coding question, which I'm going to show right now. So the first approach would be, I would have a for loop in which I would have two for loops. There would be an outer and an inner for loop in which I would hold the first element with the outer for loop, and with the inner for loop I would iterate through the whole array, and I would compare it with whole array, right? So like, let me show you. Let's have first for loop, and second for loop. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do over here is that I would compare this element to every other element. So in this case, like when I would be 2, right, I would compare it with all other elements from the first, right? So if this is, I would check whether those two are same, those two elements are same. Okay, those two value in that indexes are same. So I would compare it with 1. Okay, both are not same, so I wouldn't remove, and then it gets compared with this thing, so it's not same, so it would not remove, and then it would get compared with this. So in this case these two are equal, so what I would do is I would remove it, I would remove the jth index. Okay, so let's have a condition like if ARR of I is triple equals to ARR of j. Okay, so to remove the element I usually use splice method. Okay, so splice method works in this way. So in here we would pass two arguments. So the first argument would be the jth index itself, and the second argument would be how many elements must be removed from, starting from jth index. So only one element, we would want to remove only this element, like when this compares with every other elements. Okay, so if this is equal, we would remove this element. Okay, and one more thing we have to do over here is we have to give j minus minus. It's because when you compare and when you at this point of time, this would get removed and this would become the current third index element, right? So in next iteration when j becomes 4, okay, so it would miss this one, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This comes over here and this comes over here. It misses this one and it starts to compare with the next element. So what we have to do is we have to give j minus minus, so that here when this was removed, the index was 3, right? So here it becomes 2, j minus minus, so it becomes 2 over here, and when it comes to this point, what happens is that it would increment again, so it becomes 3, and now this is the recent, the current third index element. So now this would be compared with this also. right? So for that reason we would have this one. And one more thing is that we don't want to compare the same element, like same index element. So like if I equals to 0 and j equal to 0, right, both indexes are same and the elements would be same. We don't want to remove that, right? So I should not be equal to j, so which means we shouldn't compare that element to itself. Okay, and let's check the output of this array. Okay, so we are getting this output which is same as this one. Okay, so this is one way I would approach this kind of coding question, and the other approach is quite simpler than this one. So let me comment this out. So basically what I would do is I would have one, let's have output array. Okay, so this would be our output array and I would assign an empty array to it. So let's iterate the input array. Okay, let element of array. Okay, so basically I'm using for of loop. Okay, so let me show you how this works. So when I console, it just prints all the elements inside this array, 1 2 3 3 4 3. So yeah, so this is printed. So this is the traditional for loop, and this is another way with which you could iterate an array. So let's remove this. So what I would do is that I would push the element inside the output array if it is not present inside the output array. Okay, which means like if output array not includes element, like if it doesn't include that element. So if the output array doesn't include this element, what I would do is I would push that element into the output array. Okay, so when it comes to first index, like it would get, it's not in the output array, so we'll push it into the output array. Same goes to this, same goes to this. But when it comes over here, it checks the output array if it includes or not. So if it includes, it doesn't push it. Okay, so let's console this output array. Okay, so we are getting this output again. So this is simpler than the above one. When I was asked this question, I went with this approach. So when he asked me to remove the repeated element in the array, the only thing I could think of was splice method, because splice method usually helps us remove any element in an array. I would like to add that you have to work on your problem solving skills. You have to practice and practice so that you would get better at your problem solving skills. So whenever you're given any question, you just have to create an image of how you would approach to that coding question. So like how I was thinking of the splice method, in this case, to remove the repeated element in the array, right? So you just have to have that presence of mind, for to solve these kind of questions. So basically, you just have to know like in what condition you have to use splice. You can also use, there is another method called slice to remove an element in an array, and you can use pop, you can use shift, like so pop and shift cannot be used for in this case. So I went with splice. So just have a look at inbuilt JavaScript array methods. So those will come handy whenever you try and solve a coding question. So You just have to know at what condition you want to splice the array, and when and how to use a for loop, whether you would need one for loop or two for loop. You just have to practice and get better at problem solving skills. So this is it, guys. Make sure to like this video and comment if you have any questions, and subscribe for more interview questions. Thank you.